Great, we're live. So good morning and welcome to our Spring Festival webinar session this morning, where I'm delighted to be joined by an expert panel from technology firm Slice. So before we kick off, can I encourage you all to use the chat function throughout the session to ask any questions, and we will do our very, very best to get through as many of these questions as possible. So our session this morning is focused on courage. Courage can be defined as the quality shown by someone who decides to do something difficult or dangerous, even though they may be afraid. So why is courage important from an employability perspective? Well, taking that on as our panel of experts this morning, Connor, Danielle and Kiva, who have kindly taken time from their busy schedules to be here this morning. So thank you guys, thanks in advance, you're very welcome. And I'm now going to pass it over to you guys at this stage to introduce yourselves and take it from here.
Cool, thanks, Carl. Yeah, delighted to be here, and thanks to the team for joining me on the call this morning. Yeah, like you said, Carl, courage is I guess really important to have in your career for a number of reasons, and we'll explore that. And we'll have an open discussion around some of the thoughts that we have had on how that might impact your career and drive you forward, and maybe some concerns that you have as well. But yeah, as you mentioned, I'll do a quick overview of Slice in a second. But if I can get maybe the team to introduce themselves first of all. My name is Connor. I'm a talent acquisition partner here at Slice. So essentially, my role is to help grow the team in this year, 2022, and beyond that as well. I guess with a specific focus on technology related roles. So those graduates coming from software engineering, computer science, or mathematics backgrounds. I'm typically the first point of contact for anybody that applies to Slice. So I'm sure you'll speak to me at some point if you have done. But I'll ask the other two guys here to introduce themselves. Danielle, do you want to maybe go first, please?
Yep. So my name is Danielle, and I've been in the software industry now for about 4 years. And I'm currently working in Slice as part of the consumer marketing team. So I work predominantly on the customer facing application, which is Slice's actual pizza ordering application.
Brilliant.
I'm Kiva. I'm a QA engineer. Some of you guys might know that better as a software tester. I work within our Slice point of sale system, which is called Slice Register. And I've been in the industry for about 3.5 years now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So just to flick across, Carl, thanks for the intro to kind of Slice. You're absolutely right. We are a technology company first and foremost. I guess quite unusually or maybe uniquely, we're operating in the pizza market, and we are the kind of one of the leading marketplace tech platforms in that space. So essentially our ethos, we're here to kind of empower independent pizzerias in the US and give them the tools, the technologies, data insights, and even from a creative and marketing perspective, those tools to help them compete with the bigger players that you would know, Domino's and Pizza Hut, for example. So our target audience is the US market. That's where we operate, which is actually worth $47 billion annually. So it's crazy money.
That's a lot of pizza, Connor.
It's a lot of pizza, yeah. It's some crazy stats. It's like 150 slices eaten every second or something ridiculous. So it's crazy. But we have offices here in Belfast City Centre, New York City, and then Macedonia as well. And as a company, we would probably class ourselves as a mature startup. We've been going for about 12 years, but we do have almost 1,000 employees globally now. And then I guess moving on to kind of courage in your career. Yeah, we kind of got our heads together and the team came up with a few points that we think kind of directly relate to, I guess, this subject loosely as well. So we'll just kind of go through them. If there's any questions, please,
sure.
Please pass those on and we'll get to them. But I guess the first one, courage in your career, is switching to a different career path completely. I know personally speaking, when I was, back at uni, deciding what I wanted to do, it was really difficult. I mean, it felt like you had to kind of decide all of a sudden what you wanted to do. And that happened very, very abruptly. I studied graphic design in my career, and that at that time felt right for me, but ultimately wasn't, because I'm not in that industry at the moment. But I guess there is something courageous about having that kind of chat with your friends or your family and identifying that maybe, not that you made the wrong choice, but maybe that just wasn't the right choice for the long term. And I guess, Danielle, I think you can speak kind of more to your experience in this area as well. I mean, you had a career change yourself.
Yeah, I had a pretty dramatic career change. I actually started off doing an economics degree. So again, it was kind of that thing where IT in my secondary school wasn't really like a popular thing. There wasn't very much courses on it. So where economics was like a really good subject to study. So I started off doing that, ended up going on continuing in Jordanstown doing a full degree in it. And then it wasn't until like I did really well in it. It wasn't as if I was doing bad. Whenever I was on my placement year for it, which I was grateful that you did have that experience to take that time in the industry and actually get some experience. And when I was doing it, I just realized that I couldn't see myself doing this for the rest of my life and being in that position. And it was then that I was kind of started having those conversations, as Connor said, with my family, where I was like saying, like, I don't think this is for me. Like, one of the things actually was when I was there, I was kind of interested more in the technology I was using as the tools for, like, in economics, it's all about your graphs and your analytics. And I was kind of interested in the tools and how they were actually working. So that kind of led me down that tool of actually looking outside. I started going to women in tech meetups and actually starting to then get involved in the software side of it. That's whenever I decided, when I went back, I was like, I'm not going to leave now. I want to continue. I did final year and I did get a first in it. But then I decided, right, okay, I want to try this computing and see how it goes. So I decided to start all over again and do a software engineering degree. And again, there is so many different career paths. So I did the full degree again. And the main reason for that was because I wanted to get the experience after doing the full one. I didn't want to just rush in, do a year of a master's and it being really intense and not liking it. So I decided to take the route of doing the full degree. And I also got a scholarship, which meant then I was getting that experience of being able to work at the same time. So during first year, I then was able to do a summer internship. And then I was able to see straight away, this is so much better. This is what I can see myself doing. I really enjoyed it. Continued on, got the placement year experience, and same thing. I loved it and haven't looked back now. So
that's definitely a courageous move, though, Danielle. I mean, just to go back to square one. You've kind of done all the hard slog. You've got a first, so you must have worked hard through your first degree, and then you've gone back to kind of do it all again. So hats off. That is a courageous move. There's no doubt about that. But well done.
Really. Great. Thanks for sharing. I guess, the next 2 points are quite closely linked, I would say. But, I mean, you might find yourself in a role and, quite often, you want to push yourself forward and you don't want to stagnate. So having the self-belief or the courage, however you want to phrase it, to put yourself forward for a promotion. I think, to my understanding, there are companies out there that allow you to kind of self-nominate when it comes to review cycles and promotional periods throughout the year. Maybe it's once or twice a year. But further than that, there are companies that typically don't adopt that approach. And when we say kind of put yourself forward, it's maybe even just, having a one-to-one, a chat with your manager or your direct leader, whoever it is on your team. And asking them what you can do or what the next step is in your career. Like that is a courageous step, because quite often people aren't going to push you that way. So it's up to you to kind of take that into your own hands and have those difficult conversations as well. But quite often you'll find that people respond quite well to that. And then additionally, courage to put yourself out there and apply for the job. So maybe you've had those conversations with your manager or your boss, and they haven't quite gone as you would have expected, or maybe it wasn't perceived as you would have hoped. I think we'd love to think that there's options out there, and certainly within software engineering in the Belfast market is really booming at the moment. So there's lots of scope for that, to look for a new role, and ask your friends, ask your family, ask ex-colleagues, other students that you're studying with, kind of where they're applying, what they find interesting, see if there's anything out there. I don't know, Kiva, do you have any kind of thoughts or?
I guess so. Like you say about the whole promotion thing, I think that a lot of companies are very much pushing towards having like a set kind of guideline as to how you can go from, the junior role to intermediate to senior. And I know here at Slice, like it's very similar in that we have like a list of things that you can do, and you don't have to meet every single thing, which I think was something that I really struggled with trying to move from like junior into intermediate roles. Was I thought that I had to be able to do everything in that role, but it doesn't always end up like that. And like you say, applying for a new job, like just chat to people. And honestly, one of the best things that you can do is building out your LinkedIn profile, networking with lots of people there, and you'll see tons of new jobs. You'll see people starting to work for companies that you've never even heard of, and that might be of interest to you as well. So it's definitely worth like expanding your horizons in that sort of way.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, I quite often I'm speaking with applicants, and when I'm asking them how they heard about Slice, and typically it's through job boards, but on occasion it is just they spoke to somebody, or a friend of a friend mentioned it, and then they delved a little bit deeper and found out a wee bit more about us as a technology company, and then ultimately put themselves forward. So they are creative steps, but they're baby steps. They're not big tasks. They're not monumental. There's not a lot of work involved there in kind of reaching out to somebody that you probably already know or that has experience applying as well. And I guess the last point on the slide, taking risk and not being afraid of failing. That's a massive one. I think I've spoken to a few people in the past, and myself included, in my early career, I always kind of, not to sound kind of big-headed, but any job that I went for, I was successful, and there was a kind of nice succession of, those three roles happened, and I got them all on a quick roll. But like that quickly fades away, and it's difficult to take it when you ultimately are unsuccessful for a role. So that's all part of the job hunting process, and looking for your next step in your career and being courageous enough to do that. So I would say, like, be prepared for that. You're not going to be successful for every role that you apply for, or every opportunity that you try to explore. But take that risk and don't be afraid of failing, because I think a lot of the time that's actually part and parcel of actually kicking yourself forward. You have to pick yourself up again and go for the next one. Don't know, has anybody any thoughts or experiences on that side? I guess taking risk.
I would definitely agree, and it kind of links in as well. With like the applying for a new job, I think especially whenever you come out of uni and you've got that job and you're like, okay, no, that's it. the hard part is over. I'm working now. But it's important that like you're getting everything that you want. You've worked this hard and done your degree in order to now be in that position. And the one thing I find good with technology, like all the IT jobs out there, is that they're trying to get you. You're not going, oh, please take me. It's trying to find out what company's best for you. And I was scared whenever I first moved to Slice. I was like, oh no, I know I'm safe where I am. Like I shouldn't go, but it's been the best thing. Like moving to a different company and getting to experience new things. And obviously it's scary, but it's definitely pays off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, would agree with that as well. Like, previously, kind of as you had said there, Danielle, when I was applying for graduate jobs, like back whenever I had kind of just come out of uni, I had gotten an offer for a company, and I sort of thought, okay, well, this is it, and sort of felt like I should have had a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. But there was just something in me, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to enjoy this. And the company did absolutely everything right. Like they let me tour the offices, they let me have chats with people in the team that I'd be working in. And it even came down to them saying, well, what if we offered you more money for this role? And it's kind of having the courage to just say no if you don't think that that's the role for you, which, whenever you're first coming out of uni, I had so many friends that were struggling to find a job, and they were like, you have this job, like, why would you not go for it? But if you're going to be unhappy in it and you just don't see yourself there, then having the courage to kind of say no and know that it is okay and you can just keep waiting. And for me, it worked out. Like that role that I had originally went for was a software engineer, and I ended up in QA, which is like, I suppose kind of similar, but not completely. And I know that QA is what I enjoy and where I kind of belong. So I think it was definitely worth waiting for.
And did you have I guess deep down, did you know that you wanted to get into the QA side more so than kind of software development, I suppose? And did that play a factor in your decision then?
Yeah, I think so. I think that whenever you do kind of a tech degree, it's one of those things that software engineering roles tend to be like pushed the most, and you just kind of assume that everybody's going into it. But tech has so many different roles, and even, like yourself, Connor, like you don't technically work in a tech role, but you still work in a tech company.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot going on for people to kind of look at from that perspective as well. So I think that when I was in final year, one of my favorite modules was in software testing, but it wasn't really something that we ever heard much about jobs wise because they were kind of pushing so much towards software engineering. So once I sort of found out that this was a possibility, I enjoyed that module. I did well in it. I was kind of like, oh, well, this sort of all adds up and makes sense.
Great. Awesome. Okay, just before I flick it across the next slide, Carl, have you any questions on that or anything?
No, I'm taking this in because there's some really good advice coming from kind of the anecdotal sort of stories of your guys' own sort of career path there, in terms of not being afraid to fail, first of all, but a very relevant one there was kind of saying no and following your heart, and kind of if you've kind of got a direction that you want to go in, and sometimes things will come your way that it may be tempting, as you sort of alluded to there, chance of more money and sort of they've done everything right, but deep down you wanted to go a certain direction and made the courageous decision to follow that, so I think that's kind of really good bit of advice, because sometimes if it doesn't feel right, it rarely is right. If I'm not mistaken, Connor, you from a recruitment perspective, when you don't have an inclination about a particular candidate in a process, usually it comes out to be sort of the right inclination, if the fit's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think touching on that, your gut feeling is there for a reason, I guess, so pay attention to it. And look, similarly on the other side, like we don't want to be in a position where we're, twisting people's arms to come, Slice is not going to be perfect for everybody. Like we think we've got a great company, a great atmosphere in that year, but people may prefer a smaller company, for example, and we can't help that. So we're never going to kind of try and railroad anybody into a role here. So similarly, if you've got feeling that maybe it's not right for you, or there are other opportunities out there, I'd say to echo that, listen to your gut, and talk it through with people close to you.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, another few points, I guess, that we had linked to courage. I'll let you take the lead on this next one, because I know you've maybe got some figures in your head or done a little bit of research. So I've put down kind of the male versus female applications, and I know you kind of want to highlight maybe the numbers around that, if you want to expand on that.
Definitely. So it was one of the things that I actually probably came across this on LinkedIn from an article that someone had shared. But the statistic is that men will apply for jobs if they meet at least 60% of the listed criteria, but women tend to typically only apply if they meet 100% of the criteria. Now, speaking from my own experience, before I read that, I would have 100% fallen into that category of, oh, well, I meet about 90% of those things, but I haven't got experience in Jenkins or some other technology that we kind of use. So I always thought that would have completely limited me. But it's strange because some of the top reasons for why people do this probably aren't what you would expect. So people actually don't apply in these circumstances, not because they don't think that they'll get hired, but because they can see that they maybe don't meet all of the qualifications, and they don't want to waste their own time and energy on applying for something that they think that they probably won't get. Whereas, it can be difficult to see that, but from being on both sides of an interview panel, like in the tech industry, I can see that hiring is just as much about your attitude as it is about aptitude. If you have that willingness to learn, you're friendly, you're approachable, and you just want to help people, like that's a really good quality. You can't teach that. So I think that it's just important for people to understand that just go for it. Like if you see a job and you think, okay, well, maybe I don't fit every single thing on this list, but I'm hitting at least sort of 70-80% of the things on there, and the things that I don't know, I'd be willing to learn. That's a big thing. So I think that kind of just going on that, and don't be afraid of just applying for something if you think that it is of interest to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can touch on that from a recruitment perspective as well. Like, job adverts and job specs, not just Slice. There's many companies out there. They're quite extensive, and I guess that would be the quote unquote perfect candidate if everybody could satisfy the criteria, but that's not often the case, and we are very much looking for attitude as well. Even things like, I guess, personal projects or meetups. I think Danielle, you mentioned that earlier. Women in tech, those kinds of attitudes that genuinely show that you have an interest in the area that you're applying to. You might not tick all the boxes, but there's definitely a keenness to get involved and learn those things. I mean, Danielle, how did you find that going to the Women in Tech meetups, and did you feel like it made you more comfortable in that space?
Yes, no, definitely. It was really good getting to talk to, especially whenever I was still at uni, it was good getting to talk to people like actually in the industry. And it's the same thing Keith is saying, that you don't actually need to meet 100% of the criteria as long as you have that willingness to learn. It might necessarily, especially whenever you're looking at the different programming languages, there's just so much and all the companies are asking for different ones. But as long as you have like a key understanding of one and you're always willing to learn another one, you just have to kind of let the company know that. And especially now, from being on the opposite side and starting to do interviews, that's the one thing that comes across. Yes, you have candidates that could list off everything, but if they don't seem like as if, okay, well, this is how we do it, like, and if they're not open to that approach and willing to like kind of learn new stuff, then that's actually more off-putting than someone who maybe doesn't know it but is willing to learn.
Yeah. Can I ask you guys, just when it is on the criteria, how do you address that in an interview? I mean, if you don't have that experience, how do you actually address that? You kind of keep it below the parapet and hope they don't ask you about it, or is the best way to be very forthright and say, actually, I don't have that experience, but how do you overcome that?
I think it's certainly the latter. I mean, just be very transparent about kind of what you do and what you don't know. Those things typically tend to come up in early stage interviews as well. So you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're getting to the latter stages and actually maybe it's getting a little bit tougher and you're expected to know a wee bit more about what's on your CV or what's on the job spec. So yeah, just be very open and transparent. Like I know our team are really open to those types of conversations. And again, if you can kind of show a wee bit of passion and around learning the areas that maybe you're not as experienced in, that means just as much as actually having the experience. A lot of your skills are going to be transferable. And again, this goes back to kind of, I guess, links to the previous session that we did last week, but building your kind of skill set out. There's loads of free kind of courses and, watching videos. If you've spent 30 hours watching a video on a certain technology or a certain area, yes, you haven't used it kind of commercially in your role, but there's an interest there and it shows that you actually have got the aptitude and the attitude to pick those up. So yeah, to go back to your question, Carl, I'd say be very transparent about it. And I think that is quite more often than not is going to be received, really well, that you're honest about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And especially like even if you're given like a criteria, like say some of the languages you don't know, even if you did just a bit of research before the interview on it, and then you can just openly say, yes, I don't actually know Ruby, but I do know this about it from looking into it, and that kind of shows, okay, you're willing to look into
You've
it,
got an
you're willing to
interest
learn.
in it at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I completely agree with that. And at the end of the day, if you do start like twisting the truth and saying, oh yeah, I have done some work in that, it will come out because they will ask you questions on it. But ultimately, like being on an interview panel, we are rooting for you. Like we really want you to do well. And I think that for me, until I was kind of on that side of the panel as someone that was just going to interviews, I always thought, they want to make this as difficult as possible and they don't want me to get the job. And it's not like that. We really want you to come and work here. We want you to tell us everything. So whenever someone says in an interview, can you tell me more about that? We're not trying to catch you out. We're trying to see how far does your knowledge go before we kind of say, okay, well, like Danielle said there, well, you maybe don't know much about Ruby, but you were able to tell us everything that you could possibly know about Python. So, the aptitude is still there. So it's important to remember that when you're doing interviews. We don't want to see you fail. Like we really want you to do well in it.
Yeah, that's good advice. I've been told before that if your answer in an interview is yes or no, then it's wrong. It's every question in an interview is an invitation for you guys to tell as much as you can about yourself and about your skills and the positives and why you're a good fit for the position.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just to go back to the point that we're on, we've kind of snowballed from that a little bit, which is great. But male versus female, I guess a question for Danielle and Kiva then. Now that you guys are kind of experienced in tech and you've been in the industry for a few years each now at least, has it changed your kind of view on, I guess, looking at job specs and job descriptions? Like how would you approach it if you were looking at it again?
Yeah, if I was looking again at it, I definitely wouldn't be looking at the 100% criteria. I would be saying, okay, these are some of the ones that I meet. Also, it's important to be like, they're ones I want to work on rather than looking at it as, oh, okay, I have to learn all these. But if you're going to then do that role and you don't actually want to work on any of that stuff, then it's not really the right one for you. So it's kind of, again, going back to what Kiva was saying about taking the courage to say, no, okay, this might be a good company, but if this isn't going to be stuff you want to work on, then don't be doing it. The criteria is there for you as well, as much as it's there for the company.
Yeah, definitely. Like, as you say, especially the way the job market is at the minute, like I'm not too sure about other industries, but I know in tech, like Danielle had said earlier, like the company wants you, they want to try and hire as many people as possible. So like if it's not the right fit, then say no. But it is important to look at the criteria now. And I would think, well, no, I don't know how to use, like, I'm not overly confident in C#, but I know I'm really good at Java. So you can push your kind of strengths to that. So they might be very specifically looking for someone that only has one programming language and that's all the experience that they've had. But then that's just not the right fit, and you move on and you find something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess that kind of pulls us in nicely to the next point in dealing with rejection. Something I've had to do as well in my career and applying for roles and being unsuccessful. I'll throw it out to you guys. Like, any thoughts on dealing with rejection? Maybe you haven't, but what do you reckon?
No, I definitely have. More so in my placement year, I really struggled to get a role, but I think it was maybe because I was being so fussy and so particular about where I wanted to work that I kind of almost left it too late in the year. But it's tough mentally to deal with rejection, no matter what kind of aspect of your life that it is. Like, that's just a natural thing. But if you let it completely consume you, it's going to put you off applying for any other roles, which ideally is not what you want. And that's kind of a vicious circle to try and break out of. But I think for me, the most important thing was pick yourself up. Don't take it too personally. Like, it's not always that they don't like you as a person. It's just maybe that your skills aren't quite what they need in the role. It's not a direct kind of, oh, we don't like you, so we don't want you to work here. Like, it's very rarely going to be something like that. But if you ask for feedback after interviews, I find that that's something that's really helpful. Or if there's something in the interview process, like, I know that I had always really struggled with the technical tests. So for me, it was going back and looking at technical tests and, trying to get my skills up there, because I knew I was able to do the thing if I was able to get into the job, but proving that in the interview stage can be really difficult. So I kind of went back, worked on that, and then went forward in interviews and was always passing the tech test part because I knew now what to expect and what they were kind of looking for in it. So yeah, I think that was really helpful.
I think that's a good point. I mean, dealing with rejection, yes, you just got to take it on the chin sometimes, but what's the learning from that, I guess, and then having the courage to go out and address those learnings. And like you said, it maybe just practicing technical tests or kind of identifying your areas that you fell down in or you're a little bit weaker on, but how can you rectify those and how can you set yourself up for success at the next interview or the next one, whatever it may be. What about imposter syndrome then? Kiva, I'm coming to you again, is it?
It's a nightmare. I kind of always thought, I don't know what it is with imposter syndrome, but for those that kind of don't know, like I do have like a definition of it, is just that it's the inability to believe that your success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of your own effort or skills. That does kind of sound a wee bit waffly, but basically it's whenever you go into work and think, how did I get here? I don't belong here. Everybody here is smarter than me. Everybody here knows what they're doing. And just kind of generally in life, I don't really think that anybody knows what they're doing. Everyone's just kind of sort of facade to kind of take a guess at what to do. But it is a difficult thing to navigate, and I think that the more into your career you get, I sort of assumed, well, that'll leave with time and with practice and everything. But I've spoken with engineering leads and managers, and they still say that, there's days that they think, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. But you kind of have to put it to the back of your head and just sort of think, you've had the courage to do something new. You've got to where you are based on your skills. Nobody's just hired you because they like the sound of, how you speak about something. Like, you've got to where you are because of your own hard work and determination. And, just appreciate that and know that anything that comes from it, you need to own it and just say, no, do you know what? I've got to where I am because of what I've done to get here. And you do deserve to be where you are.
Yeah, such a good point. I mean, thanks for the kind of thoughts on that. I totally agree. Like, there are days when I'm not a technical person in any means, but there's stuff flying at me left, right, and center, and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? But I always think, like, don't be afraid. Have the courage to ask for help as well. You mentioned before, like, people want to see you succeed, especially if you've joined the company recently. You've been through your panel interviews. Everybody's rooting for you. Really, the expectation is not there for you to come in and set the world on fire from day one. You have that embedded in period. You have that time to kind of grow into your role, and your employer will afford you that. But yeah, even if it does get a little bit too much, or you're unsure, ask for help and don't be afraid to do that. I think would be my advice. I know that I'm, pinging messages out left, right, and center every day to try and kind of find out who I need to speak to get done what I need to do. And you'll find that, people are more than happy to help as well. And then eventually it's nice when, you do become quite familiar in that area, and, that's reciprocated because people are now pinging you about how you can help them. And you grow into that, which is great. Danielle, any thoughts from you on that? Or have you kind of got any similar experiences or?
Yeah, I think with doing like a lot of tech talks go on within a lot of different companies, and you always think whenever you're going to them, oh, I could never do that. I can get up there and start talking. I'll get too nervous, or I don't know enough, as Kiva was saying. But you realize, okay, take that chance, take the risk, and just try it and sit down and put yourself forward for doing a tech talk. And then once I think you get over that initial hurdle of doing one, then you realize you surprise yourself and be like, oh, okay, no, I can do this. And then it becomes more of a conversation. A lot of the time you think as if you're just standing up there in front of people and giving like a lecture, but it's really good whenever you actually start to see people interacting with you and asking questions, and you'll surprise yourself putting yourself forward.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think even this call you referred to us as an expert panel. I'm thinking, oh God, I'm not an expert in this at all, but I'd love to share my thoughts.
And especially what you're saying even about like asking for help and stuff like that, like especially even within Slice, like it really is a team base. It's not you're there and you get a task and you have to go off and you do it on your own and that's it. If anything, like pair programming is really encouraged. It's all about working within the team. So it's definitely reach out, ask questions, pair with someone. If anything, that's better than just sitting there and working away on your own.
Yeah. I think it can be difficult to approach that working remotely. Obviously with like COVID, most people that work in kind of office-based settings are now working from home. I know that Danielle and I both started in Slice remotely. So I was kind of afraid because I had a previous role before this where I started remotely and it didn't go well. So I was a little bit apprehensive about starting there and was kind of nervous about reaching out to people on like Slack or Teams or, whatever you use. But ultimately people, I'd like to hope in every company are as friendly as what they are here. I could reach out to any person in Slice with something that is related to them or isn't. And if they can't give me an answer, they'll normally say, well, I don't know how to help you, but if you chat to such and such, they know a lot more about this system or this program. So like you say, you just have to have the courage to send that first message. Like they're not going to bite. And sometimes it can be difficult to do it working remotely. But some people actually find that easier because, if you're sitting in an office and they say, oh, go and chat to Danielle about this. And I'm like, okay, but I don't know who Danielle is. So it can be much easier to kind of do that remotely as well. But yeah, just go for it.
Yeah, I think, the key takeaways for me there are like, you didn't you didn't get to where you are by accident. It didn't just fall into place. You have done something, or you have demonstrated your skills that have enabled you to get into the role. And I guess when you're in that role, you're not by yourself. So ask for help. And then I guess the final point that we have down is graduate schemes. You both mentioned, I think earlier in the call, internships or graduate programs. How do you think that's helped, I guess, kick your careers forward? I mean, have you had to make any courageous decisions there? Like, what are your experiences?
I can start with this one. So I joined a company on their graduate scheme straight out of uni, and it was great. It actually started with 4 weeks of training in South Africa for us to gain our ISTQB qualification, which is a software testing qualification. I learned so much in 4 weeks, and for me, that was exactly what I needed to kind of bridge the gap between coming out of uni and thinking, oh gosh, I'm going straight into a role here. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. This training kind of allowed me to think, oh, right, no, I do actually know what I'm doing, and just kind of built upon what I already knew. But I know that a lot of schemes as well allow you to work in like different sectors of the company, or like on different projects over maybe like a year, 18 months. And then you can kind of see where you enjoy, where you fit in, where you're good at whatever they're doing, and kind of where you fit the best. And I think for people as indecisive as I am, things like this are really, really helpful. So yeah, I would say if you can get into a graduate program, I think that they're really great.
Yeah, Perfect. No, I would definitely agree. Graduate programs are the way to go, like to get that experience, to try out. As I said, I had to change career path after trying out the economics first and didn't like it. So I definitely recommend any programs. It doesn't even have to be whenever you graduate. Like I did the scholarship, so it can be literally as soon as you're getting into uni in first year, you can try and get some experience. And I was able to work during the summer then, between my first and second year. And then also then you were guaranteed a placement year after your second year, which give you that full year experience to make sure, again, this is what you want to do. And the same thing as Kiva said, there's so many different sectors within IT. So as well, like I wanted to stay in the software part of it, but I know a lot of my friends who, whenever they were on the year, were able to try out different teams and try out the different testing, if they wanted to do systems, if they wanted to work more on the security side of things, and it gives you that opportunity to try out those different things.
Perfect. And those internships, or sorry, scholarships that you mentioned, I mean, are they something that are readily pushed on you, or I mean, did you have to kind of go and find out it was about yourself? I mean,
whenever I did it, I had to go out and find out about it myself. But I know since then I've been going out to universities and stuff like that to try and kind of emphasize to people, apply for these schemes, like they're definitely worth it. And a lot of them as well also offer you money towards your degree as well. So I got £1,000 each year of studying as well, which was really helpful.
Brilliant. Okay, great. Okay, Carl, any thoughts or any questions for us just on that before I flick it across? Lost your audio, I think. No, we've still lost you, unfortunately. It's all good.
I think I'm back, but no, what I was saying was, Connor, continue on. I'm engrossed in what you guys are saying here, so Perfect. Crack on. I've got a couple of maybe questions towards the end.
No worries. Well, look, I think we've pretty much covered all of the points there that we had down. The last point, I guess, kind of segues nicely into Slice, and I just wanted to kind of make everybody aware that we are actually hiring graduates for kind of mid or summer 22 start. So those are graduate software engineer positions. Predicted start dates are kind of May, June time after graduation kind of timelines typically happen. And, we're very open to the background, but, typically the candidates are going to come from computer science or software engineering or even mathematics background. So you'll find all the information on our website, slicelife.com/careers. But likewise, if you have any questions, have the courage, I guess, to reach out to myself or any of the team here, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions on LinkedIn or email. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. And then so thanks, and any questions?
A couple of questions have come through, and just picking up on your most recent slide there.
Sure.
So appreciate Slice is an American company, but you guys have offices in Belfast and Macedonia.
Yep.
What does the culture look like here then for the Belfast office? I mean, how does that sort of all work out? Is it kind of got a Belfast feel to it, or has it kind of got the US feel to it? Or tell us a little bit about the culture of Slice.
Yeah, I guess like we're a typical tech company. You know, you can see actually our office in the background there. It's quite cool. I mean, it's what you would expect. It's fully kitted out with what you would need to kind of make your working life when you're in the office very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Culture-wise, yeah, you're absolutely right. We have office in New York City, and we have 3 offices actually in Macedonia, and then obviously Belfast City Centre. We do work in distributed teams, but we just make do with the time zone. So I know the guys here typically have their meetings, after afternoon time, which is morning time for our US colleagues. We just make it work. We're a technology company after all, so we're set up for success in that area for sure. But I think, more locally here, everybody gets on well. Kiva alluded to it. You can happily ping anybody, even if you don't really know them that well. Everybody's happy to help. We do, I guess, from a fun perspective, if you like, we do have monthly get-togethers, pizza days. There's always a lot of pizza knocking about.
You have to have pizza, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's probably one reason I should be avoiding the office is to not eat as much pizza as there's there, or taking a doggy bag home with me. But yeah, I think that we're a very friendly bunch. We're what you would expect from a high growth tech company. What about Kevin, Danielle? Any thoughts? You're on the engineering side, obviously. Is there anything from a cultural perspective there that maybe you can share?
Yeah, I would just say as well, like we're very flexible as well with the working. Yes, of course we have US or Macedonia colleagues and stuff like that, but we'll always find a time that works. It's not as if you're going to have to be on 7 o'clock at night to facilitate a meeting. It's if you can make it and it happens to be that time, fine. But if you can't, there's no oh my God, she didn't go to that meeting or anything like that. So it is good. I love the flexibility of it, and especially the ability to work from home and go into the office. I know obviously in COVID we'll have to work from home at the minute, but pre-COVID it was always flexible where you can work from home and also in the office. And you're also given a budget as well to help make working from home a lot easier. And so one of the things I got was actually a standing desk as well. So I have my own little mini office in the house, which is really good, and Slice pay for that.
Well, just making me envious now at this stage, Danielle. So
time for a career change, Carl. You have software engineer.
Absolutely.
And any thoughts from? Sorry, go ahead. Go on.
No, because one thing, just whatever I mentioned about the budget, and another thing we also offer is for conferences and stuff like that as well. So there's different conferences happening in the likes of Spain or going over to New York. There's also a budget there for us to actually go over and enhance our knowledge. So I'll throw all out there as well.
Perfect.
Eva, any further thoughts on the culture side of things?
Well, these guys have kind of talked quite a bit about the actual work culture, but generally speaking as well, I think that it can be difficult since so many companies kind of went fully remote for the last almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
That kind of think, well, is there any culture in a workplace? But we frequently have we would have had, even during proper lockdowns when we really couldn't leave the house, we would have had calls on a Friday afternoon where everybody, could have grabbed a drink and, just chill out and chat to people that way. And we're very focused on, work hard, play hard. I think that a lot of tech companies are like that as well. We're very much appreciated that we do really hard work, and, we're rewarded with things like summer party, Christmas party, all that kind of stuff that I suppose a lot of tech companies now, as an employee, you kind of come to expect these things. But it's been great at Slice. Everybody is so friendly, and I think that makes a massive difference in the culture, that you can have the crack with anybody because you just know that it'll be reciprocated. So I think that that's a massive thing for us.
No, definitely. The social side is really important as well. So, now, Danielle and Kiva, you've both kind of demonstrated through your examples today that you guys, have an abundance of courage. Not everyone is maybe as courageous, and some people might consider themselves quite risk averse by nature. So, what advice would you give to someone who has kind of a safety approach, a safety first approach, should I say, to making a career choice?
I suppose if you kind of think about it in the way that it's not really taking a risk as much as it is just taking baby steps towards a goal. So I think if you sort of change your mindset towards, it is courageous to start applying for roles and go into interviews, and that can be very daunting, but you don't have to take risks with it. You can very much play it safe. Make sure that before you go into an interview, you've rehearsed what you think you're going to say. I think one of the things that we're very much told to do in tech is have your 2-minute elevator pitch, because the first question in most interviews are, okay, well, tell me a bit about yourself. And they don't want you to just regurgitate, my name's Kiva, I'm a QA engineer. They want to hear, what can you do, summarize everything in 2 minutes. So I think practicing things like that can certainly help you overcome that kind of fear.
Great.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just about taking those baby steps. Like whenever I first made the change to move over to Slice, like whenever I just kind of started going on to LinkedIn and talking to recruiters and putting feelers out there for leaving, I was kind of still just taking it a slow process. So I just did it bit by bit. I didn't be like, okay, I'm leaving, I'm going to just move. It's kind of just taking that time, being like, okay, does this company seem okay? Okay, maybe I'll try an interview. Okay, they might get back to you and being like, right, okay, no, I'm still not ready yet. And that's fine to say no and leave that. Like, you can still have like an open relationship there with the company to say, right, okay, I'm not ready now, but maybe in the future I will be. So even just taking those baby steps to apply, even if you're not necessarily having the courage to go straight away, you can always still go ahead in the future.
Great stuff. And I've obviously started kind of the envy sort of trail with you guys talking all the good stuff about the tech sector and your fancy offices and stand-up desks at home and all these sorts of things. So there's a few questions have come in just maybe with envious eyes from people who are not maybe in a tech discipline degree at the minute, and they're kind of saying, with a thriving tech sector, like, what advice would you give someone from a non-techie background who wants to break into the sector? And we might have some good examples here. We've got Connor, who's a non-techie, and Danielle, you've kind of said that you've gone down that path as well. So just maybe summarize just that sort of advice to someone who's in those shoes at the minute.
Sure. I think, like it's more often than not that I see kind of CVs or profiles of people who didn't start traditionally in tech or haven't gone down that traditional route. Just to go back to one of my previous points, like there's so many resources out there, free resources, courses on Udemy. There are also paid subscriptions that you can do, but I think that's a really good starting point for anybody who kind of maybe isn't formally trained but does want to kind of show that interest. You can almost then start to build a kind of picture portfolio, personal website of maybe just mock projects that you've done. I love to see that stuff personally when I'm looking at a CV. If there's a link or something that I can click on that will bring me to somebody's landing page, for example, and they can actually demonstrate, they've built a small application in whatever technology, and it doesn't have to be extensive, but it does show that there are skills there, that this person is genuinely interested, and they've taken time away from their typical 9 to 5, which may not be in tech. They're doing this in their own time, evenings, weekends. I think that mentality really shows a lot. So
yeah,
I guess that would be my advice. Take those baby steps and explore those avenues. I'm sure there's hundreds or not thousands of forums and groups, meetups that you can get involved in as well, where you can go and I guess just broaden your horizons, build your network. A lot of the time it's maybe who you know and not what you know. So you just might connect with somebody who's looking for somebody more junior or that's really hungry to learn at that moment in time. I guess that would be my advice. If the ladies have anything different.
Yeah, I would just agree, especially with the meetups. Like that's the route kind of that led me into it, is just putting yourself out there and actually going to a meetup. like I went and I didn't know anyone, but they're always warm and friendly and welcoming, and there's always food to help break the ice. And some of them are also like practical ones where there are like very basic beginner meetups out there where they actually take you through like building a wee small like tiny application in like an hour or two, and then they're always like willing to help afterwards if you have any information. So, and there is so many different meetups out there. There's like a meetup for every single language you can think of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would definitely take the opportunity to go to some of them.
Join those. Great. Any final thoughts on that one, Kiva?
No, just to pretty much echo what the guys have already said. I know that there's a lot of, I think even now, government schemes that allow you to kind of get into tech, the like Assured Skills Academy and things like that. So if you don't come from a techie background and you are interested, like I know that friends of mine have done courses in literally everything from finance to food science and are still now working in the tech sector.
Yeah.
So, you know, as long as you kind of have that attitude of wanting to learn, and you know, like Connor says, you do spend some of your free time learning it, then 100%, like we're always willing to, you know, like especially someone coming from the food science background, we work predominantly in a pizza company. You know, you'll have skills that other people won't have, so just kind of have to play to your advantages there as well.
Yeah, good advice, great stuff. And of course there's increasingly sort of non-tech roles within the tech sector now. Connor, obviously you're in talent acquisition, but there's kind of all sorts of customer success and sort of all sorts of other things that are starting to come in to Belfast, maybe with, you know, with big firms like you guys. I mean, I know at the minute it's primarily tech, but down the line, who knows, there may be kind of customer success and other operational type of roles in your business. So
absolutely. Like we just to give you like product managers for example, you know, they're not yes, they're very involved in tech and they have lots of relationships with the technical folk. They may not come from that background themselves, but you know, product folks, even the design side as well, UX designers, product designers, again, have really strong relationships with the technical folk in the company. So yeah, to your point, there's loads of opportunities in a tech company that aren't specifically tech, you know, tech related or tech on a day-to-day basis.
Fantastic. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much. Thanks to Connor, Danielle, and Kiva from Slice. It has really been a fantastic discussion on courage this morning. On behalf of our students, I'd really like to express our thanks again for joining us this morning for the session. Some really, really top tips and useful guidelines. I mean, following your path is kind of really important. Kind of if you've kind of a set direction and you know what you want to do, it's you know, really important to follow that. Don't be afraid to say no when it's not right for you. I think what you guys have demonstrated that really well today, and also don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it, because I think we'll all get that position at one stage or another in our career, and very often it's at the beginning of our careers that we'll find ourselves in that position most. A really good bit of advice from you guys is, like, you're not an imposter. You've kind of absolutely earned the right to be there wherever you are, and also explore, scratch below the surface. And being courageous really helps you to reap the rewards. Maybe not necessarily immediately, but certainly down the line. So courage is kind of a skill and a quality that we all need to embrace and probably take on. So thank you very much, guys. Of course, the guys at Slice will be attending the Careers Fair tomorrow from 2 to 6. So we hope that you're all there at that, and be sure to call into their stall and check out what they've got on offer. And of course, you can also check out the Spring Career Festival listings. I'll put a link into the chat in a second on that as well. And also, just I think there is going to be an offer here for you guys as well. So we are looking for some feedback from today's session, and I think there's an opportunity for you guys to possibly get some pizza if you fill that in. So it wouldn't be a session without giving away some pizza if the guys from Slice are here and have anything to say about it. I'm hoping to get a stand-up desk as well, Connor, so if you can kind of get that sent my way, that'll be awesome as well.
See what I can do.
So listen, guys, thank you very much. Thanks again. It's been a fantastic session, and really enjoyed having you on. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for having us. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.